there. That one of the things is they used that old black. They had that old black German bread with them, and it was kind of hard and everything, and you could smell it. One of them could be hid somewhere, and you could smell that bread on him. You know he was there.
Wow.
Okay, this interview is with Francis Sample in San Angelo, Texas, the 20th of July, 1997, and it's Victoria Ekegren interviewing. Okay, where were you born and what year?
I was born in San Angelo, Texas, June the 11th, 1926.
Okay. Yeah, just turn it. The two. Okay. And what did you have any family members that were in World War I?
No. My mother had an uncle, but I never did talk to him about it. But I remember them talking about him going over there and everything. But I don't remember that much about it.
What do you remember about the Depression?
I remember that things were very, very hard. And my daddy worked on the roads, building highways. He was a highway construction. And sometimes we didn't have a whole lot to eat, but we made it. And we're better off for it, I think. We learned a lot. We learned to take care of one another. I had 4 sisters, no brothers. So we were very close. Grew up very close.
And how long did you go to school?
I went through high school.
Okay. And did you ever have a chance to go to college?
No, I got married.
You got married. So where'd you meet Tommy the first time?
Well, the thing I remember was that we lived one street over from them. They lived across the alley and down about 3 houses. And a lot of times I had to walk to school. And the first time I ever remember meeting him, he was taking his mother to work, and I was walking to school, and they stopped and picked me up and drove me to school. And then after that, we went on a date, and we went on a hayride. I don't know if you know what a hayride is. We went on a hayride, and we had watermelon, and I threw watermelon runs at him.
You hit me in the head with it.
So you liked it from the beginning?
Yeah, so we liked one another from the beginning.
How long did you guys date?
Oh, probably about 6 or 7 months was all.
What happened?
But we had known one another for, a good many years. But that's about all that we dated, seriously.
What did the war affect you? Did you hear about the war going on in Europe? Did that have an effect on you?
Well, I remember the day of Pearl Harbor. I remember hearing about it and how scared I was. And then the next day when we went to school, we had assembly, and we all assembled, and we listened to the President Roosevelt and how he was, how he declared war. The whole school was assembled together to listen to him make the speech, and it scared me to death. Because, we're just growing up innocent, So it really did scare me.
What'd you think about it? Did you think that the U.S. would be, how involved did you think it would be?
Well, that's what scared me, was I felt sure that the U.S. was going to get involved. And sure enough, wasn't but a couple of days that they had declared war.
How did the war affect you directly?
Well, of course, Tommy was in service, and I lived with my mother and father and my sisters, and I had Jim, and he was a little baby, and of course My sisters helped me with him. But I wrote to Tommy every day that he was gone. And when he came home, I hadn't written a letter since. I hate to write letters.
What do you remember about the day when he asked you to marry you?
I remember I was excited, and we were walking down the road, and so, of course, I said yes. I didn't have any different. I didn't know any different back then.
You didn't know any better.
So tell me about your wedding day.
Well, I remember we got married at the preacher's house. We didn't have a church wedding. We got married at the preacher's house. And I remember that we were all ready to go to the wedding, and Tommy wasn't home yet. And because my dad kept going out and looking and seeing, and he hadn't got home yet. So we began to get nervous, thinking he wasn't going to show up.
Just back down, maybe.
But yeah, it was real nice, real nice.
So what happened a couple hours later when he got the draft notice?
But see, now I didn't know about that day.
Or you didn't-
He didn't tell me about it. But then a couple of days later, he told me that he was going to have to go, and that, of course, I cried. And it upset me very, very much. But wasn't nothing I could do about it.
So had you guys moved in together already at that point? Or did you have your own house here in San Angelo already right after?
No, after that, we didn't even rent a house because he was going to leave in, 18 days, I think it was. So we lived with my mother and father. Mm-hmm. And then when he left, then I stayed with them. But when he was overseas, I did have a house built down next door to his mother's house. Mm-hmm. And then my sister that's next to me moved in. We moved in together, and of course I had Jim.
So when he was in Kentucky, when did you start writing letters?
As soon as I got his address from Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And we wrote, and then I remember that I went up there just before Christmas in 1944. And it was just before Christmas. In fact, on Christmas Day, I was there, and we didn't have a place to live yet. And we didn't have, no restaurants were open. That little bitty town of Clarksville didn't have nothing. And we went to the movies and had popcorn for Christmas dinner. That was our Christmas dinner in 1944.
So can you describe the house that you guys then lived in the little apartment that you rented?
In Clarksville? Mm-hmm. Well, it was a house that was built on there was a ravine that run underneath the house, and they'd gone in there and built little huts underneath there. And but now we did live up in the house. We didn't live in one of those little ravines, but it had a wood stove. And of course, we didn't have coal here in Texas. We never burnt coal. And going up there, when I was on my way from San Angelo to Clarksville, and we started going through Arkansas and Tennessee, I got so homesick I could have turned around and come back because I had never been away from home. And there we was, those big old trees, and you couldn't even see hardly in front of you. And I was used to all of this West Texas, And so I really was depressed going up there because they didn't even have paved roads. They were just little dirt roads running. It looked like they was running through the wilderness out through there. Mm-hmm. But once I got there, I was happy that I went because I was with Tommy.
What did you do during the days when he was in service?
Well, like Tommy told you, that we had this friend, Eugene, and his wife was named Frances also. And she was there, and she and I did a lot of, well, we did some volunteer work and, stuff like that.
So when did you move back down? So you moved down to San Angelo again after when he went to Maneuvers?
Right,
Who did you move in with again?
My parents. Hmm.
You kept on writing letters? So.
I kept on writing letters, even when he was in Maneuvers. And then I was so happy when they found out he was coming to Abilene. That meant a lot to me.
So did you go up there before he got there to look for a house, or did you wait until he was there?
No, I waited because I was expecting Jim, and so I didn't go up there until after he was born.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up there right after he was born.
Can you describe the house that you lived in?
In Abilene. It was a little white house, and it had some little red trimming. It was on South 7th Street. And over on Butternut Street, there was a Safeway, and that's where we'd go buy groceries. Of course, we didn't have a car. The only way we had of getting around was walking, so we had to walk everywhere we go. We had to go to the store, buy groceries, and walk and bring them home. So, but we had fun. We enjoyed it.
What did you guys go for fun? Where was your favorite hangout in Abilene?
Mostly we went to the movies. Or over to Francis and Jean's house. We'd all get together and have a meal, and just with the bunch, that time.
What movie theater did you go to?
Goodness alive, I don't remember. It was downtown. I know we had to walk from South 7th all the way downtown. And that was a pretty good ways.
What did you think? Were you worried about the war? Were you worried about, him leaving?
I was very worried. And I remember when he came home one evening and said that they were getting ready to ship out. And Eugene, he said, Tom, he said, you know what's going to happen? He said, you're going to be in that Jeep, because that's what he was driving then. And he says, that thing's going to blow completely up with you in it. And that made me so mad at him. Of course, and then the morning that they left to go overseas, we all of the wives that I knew, I didn't know a bunch, but we all went out to the camp and watched them, leave to get on the train or whatever it was they got on. So.
Did the wives in Abilene, did you do things together more, or?
Yes.
What kind of things did you do?
Well, like I said, we'd do some volunteer work, and we'd cook, and we did some sewing. Just whatever we could find to get into, we got into it.
So when he's leaving up on a train, where do you move back down?
I moved back with my parents.
And you kept writing letters.
I kept writing letters every day.
When he left, do you remember the first letter that he wrote back to you? Do you remember?
No.
Was he as good of a writer as you were, or?
He was probably better.
Okay. What kind of things did he used to tell you when he?
Well, he would just tell me what they had done that day and what kind of training they were doing. Of course, when he was overseas, he'd just say, well, we're all doing fine, He couldn't tell too much. They were pretty short letters.
What'd you do in San Angelo just to make time pass?
Okay. My mother kept my son, and I worked. I worked at a candy factory. making candy. That's why I got so fat, I guess.
And did you follow the war really closely?
Very close, especially in Europe, you know.
Through what mediums did you follow the war?
Well, the radio, because we didn't, of course, back then we didn't have TV, so, and I didn't have time to read the paper, so I just listened to the radio.
Did they tell you very much on the radio, or what kind of news?
Not too much.
Do you remember any particular day when they said something?
No, I don't remember.
Were they
They would tell, you know, where they had gone to that day or what had happened. You know, I really didn't. Of course, not being over there and not knowing the country, I just had to make it up in my mind.
How was it having a son? Was it really hard? Or
It was hard, but it was pleasant too.
What would you think? Were you scared more days than others?
Well, sure. There was days that I guess some days you get more depressed than other days. And I guess when you're depressed, you're naturally more scared.
Did you get together with other wives still, or?
No, I didn't know anyone, you know, in our area that their husband was in service.
And you still kept on writing?
I kept on writing.
How about when the war ended? What do you remember about that?
I remember that I was on the bus coming home from work, and we heard that the war was over in Germany. And the first thing that we did was, my friend and my sister and I were all on the bus. So we got off at the church and started praying, thanking the Lord.
Mm-hmm. When did you first hear from him when the war was over again?
Well, it was a while before I heard from him, and then he said he was coming home, and he told us what day he would be in New York, and he would call. So I sat right by the side of the telephone all day long waiting for him to call, and it was way in the afternoon, late, before he called.
Tell me about the day when he actually came back to San Antonio.
Okay, he came in on the bus, and I was at the bus station, and his mother and his sister, his brother, you know, we were all down there, and he looked good. He would look better than I thought he might look, because I was afraid that, you know, maybe he'd lost weight or whatever, but he hadn't. He looked real good. We were so glad to see him.
How old was your son?
At this time, he was probably about 3 years old.
What did you tell him when he asked for Dad?
Well, of course, my dad was his dad,
Mm-hmm.
because he thought my dad was just great because he was the only male figure that he had. Mm-hmm. I did take lots of pictures. Just about every week I'd take a picture of Jim and send to Tommy. So he got lots of pictures while he was over there.
So after the war, tell me about the 12th Armored Division Association.
Like Tommy said, one night we were already asleep, and Ralph Ladding called, and so he said he wanted to know if Tommy Sample was in the 493rd, and I said yes. So I handed the phone to Tommy, and he talked to him, and he was wanting us to come to Nashville, which that was exciting. We did, and it was very exciting to go up there and to meet. Of course, I had met those boys, some of them, way back when, and but the funny thing about it, every one of them, when we went in, they all knew who Tommy was. So that was strange to me that they would remember him after all those years.
How would you describe their friendship?
You know what? I made some very good friends that day, or that time that we spent in Nashville. Arbuckle, you might have met him. He was at McLean. He took us in his car, because he lived there close to Nashville, and he took a bunch of us wives in his car and carried us all around and showing us different ones home, and we had a real good time. And then he took us one time, he took us shopping to a mall, and so we had a real good time. And Dorothy Panek, she and I just hit it off like that, and we became very, very good friends. She's still a good friend.
You kept in touch. This meant a lot to you too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How was it? How was it just adjusting back to living together again when he came back from the war?
Well, having to cook meals every day was different, because I wasn't used to cooking all the time. But yeah, we had to adjust. It took time, but we did.
How many more children do you guys have after the war?
We had one other son. Jimmy was almost 12 years old when Terry was born. Mm-hmm. So we have two families, actually, but it was fun. We had Terry at home long after Jimmy got married, so we got to spoil him real good.
Okay. You have this awesome poem that you wrote to your husband during the war, and I would just like you to read it.
It says, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting always, waiting for you to come back to me. It may be years, and I'll shed many tears before your dear face I'll see. But I know that someday I'll see you, as God meant it just that way. Else why did he bring us together if sweethearts we weren't to stay? Why would he make me love you if he meant to take you away? I know we were born for each other. My heart tells me that, you see. So I'll be waiting, always waiting for you to come back to me.
I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Beautiful poem.
Thank you.